This is a CBC podcast.
And it won't be long until second doses of the COVID-19 vaccine are available in northern BC. Yesterday, Dr. Bonnie Henry announced the timeline between people receiving their first and second shot had been reduced to about 8 weeks. Meanwhile, the city of Prince Rupert will be hosting a second community vaccination clinic beginning June 14th, and Rio Tinto workers in Kitimat will begin receiving second doses on May 31st. But what lessons can the province learn from the initial rollout of the first dose? On the line to discuss that with us is Brian Conway. He is the medical director and an infectious disease specialist at the Vancouver Infectious Diseases Centre. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So what will you be looking for as rollout of the second dose begins?
Well, I think we always knew this was a two-dose vaccine. The second dose is important for long-term protection of both individuals and the community. I will be looking for people to step up to the plate to choose to receive the second vaccine at the earliest possible time so that we can return to the new normal altogether at the earliest possible time.
And I mentioned in that intro there that this is, as everyone knows, it's the second go-around of a provincial rollout of vaccines. What lessons can we learn from that first dose rollout to make the second one more effective?
We need to make the second dose available more broadly and more easily to those that need to receive it. Many have suggested that the way to register for the vaccine administration was a little bit more complicated. Places that they needed to go weren't necessarily accessible, open at the right times. And as we try to vaccinate everyone from age 12 and up, we need to use schools. We need to have opportunities for families to come and receive their shots at the same time. Our goal is to have as many people vaccinated, 75, 80% of the population, by the end of the summer, and that's 2 doses. To do so, we need more ways in, more user-friendly ways in, and we need to be able to answer everyone's questions about the vaccine and validate their decision to step up to the plate and receive it.
When you say more easier ways in, could you go into a bit more details about that? Like what specific ways could that happen?
Well, many clinics have suggested that they could be available to provide the vaccine, and they haven't been recruited as part of the program. Some schools, I think that if we're to vaccinate people aged 12 to 17, it makes a lot of sense to do this in high schools, to have socially distanced events in high school gyms where there'll be experts to answer questions, where families could come, where everyone could realize that all of their friends are choosing to get vaccinated. And so that when we reopen the schools fully in the fall, this would help build the confidence that we're doing so safely and that most, if not all, of the students that are in attendance, as well as staff, are fully vaccinated so they can interact in a new normal without any concern about COVID transmission.
And to follow up on that, the first dose of the vaccine was initially targeted towards people who are older and more vulnerable, and the province did indicate yesterday that that's the same approach that will be taken for the second doses. Is that still the correct way to do this, in your opinion? Or should the goal be to target as many people as quickly as possible, regardless of age?
Well, it's a bit of both. We need to vaccinate the older individuals because they received the vaccine first, so that the interval between first and second shots is now very long, and we need to get the second shots into them as quickly as possible. Second group is those that are at risk of getting disease because of their immune system, because of any other medical conditions they might have, because the first shot of the vaccine might not have worked as well for them. And then it's the entire community in as easy and fast a way as we can think of. So it is kind of everybody. So whatever vaccine we have should be in arms as soon as we can. There should not be a delay between vaccine availability and vaccine administration. And so if we do it that way, everyone will get their shots, I think, quickly, and this goal of getting everyone vaccinated by the end of the summer will be met.
Now, I'm speaking to you from Prince Rupert, where we had the community-wide vaccinations. It was quite successful by all accounts. 75% of people were vaccinated under that program. Is that an effective way of doing this, and could that be replicated more broadly throughout the province this time around?
The goal of the first shot was to protect the community in areas where a hotspot had been identified. Highly successful. I think that is a bit resource intensive to be able to be applied across the whole province in the same way as it was done in Prince Rupert and Whistler and in other places. That being said, for Prince Rupert in particular, if it worked once, it can work again. And I would suggest that the same thing be applied if it's at all feasible to do so. And that would be the ultimate win-win. The whole city is protected in the long term for the good of the individuals and the good of the community.
We spoke with Adrian Dix about BC's reopening plan earlier this week, which is based on 70% immunization, and that's the minimum. But how important will it be to hit 80%, that 80% mark that's recognized as the magic number for herd immunity?
Well, I think the better we do, is fine. I think 70% is a floor. It's a minimum standard for us to meet. It looks as if we'll be able to exceed that. Vaccine hesitancy in British Columbia remains very low at the 10 to 15% mark. So we should be able to achieve 85 to 90%. And with the vaccine availability such as it is, we could get 2 doses into that proportion of the population so that we'd only be left with 10 or 15% of the population not immunized. That's good enough for community-based immunity. Any cases that would develop over and above that would be easier to find, trace, and eliminate the transmission networks. And we could work on convincing the 10 to 15% who are resistant to step up and choose to be part of the solution. Obviously on their own terms, they're not going to force anyone to do anything. But at that point, that's the kind of discussion that we could have, and that could be a very productive one.
And what about actual procurement and actual having a ready supply of vaccines? Will there be enough vaccines to go around?
Well, we're told there will be. People are suggesting that over 50 million doses will be available in Canada by the midsummer. We need to get to 70 million across the entire country to vaccinate everyone who's eligible. 60-odd million gets to all who want the vaccine. So I think the numbers are looking very good. We need to vaccinate about 400,000 Canadians on a daily basis. Figures for yesterday are about 405,000. So it seems as though we can do this, but we certainly need to hold federal authorities accountable. And if we ever fall behind, begin to ask the questions as quickly as we can as to why that is and how we will catch up. But everyone's saying that the vaccine will be there, and it's up to us to get it into arms as provinces, as regions, as cities. So let's do that.
All right. So the million-dollar question, how optimistic are you that things will be close to normal by the fall?
Every day I'm actually getting more optimistic.
That's good.
For a couple of reasons. I think the supply we just talked about, the enthusiasm from the population, people are happy. They want the new normal. And I'm seeing initiatives to vaccinate more and more people here in the Lower Mainland and across the province that seem to be very well thought out and have a high likelihood of succeeding. That being said, let's not underestimate the task that's ahead of us. This isn't for tomorrow. This is weeks and a few months. So we really need to keep up the pace and remind ourselves of when we don't keep up the pace, we're threatening the new normal, and we should ask ourselves why that is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights on this, Dr. Conway.
Thanks very much for having me.
Brian Conway is the Medical Director and Infectious Diseases Specialist at Vancouver Infectious Diseases Centre.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.